I'm sitting here at Crossroads Shooting Sports in Johnston, Iowa, where IFC just concluded a 3-day Educators Academy. Hi folks, Richard Rogers here, board member with Iowa Firearms Coalition. I'm sitting here at Crossroads Shooting Sports in Johnston, Iowa, where IFC just concluded a 3-day Educators Academy, where we took about 15 students who are school staff, school teachers, church leaders, who are of varying backgrounds as far as their shooting skills, knowledge, experience. And we tried to show that you can take people of such varied backgrounds and bring them up in a very short time to a reasonably high standard of both mental preparedness and knowledge and skill level, so that if they ever had to face an evil person coming into a school, particularly we were looking at school situations, active shooters in schools, that they would have something to fall back on and be able to oppose that evil with their armament, as an armed staff member with this training, and then hopefully, additional training in the future. But this is an introduction. This is a proof of concept course. Very first time that we've tried to do this. So I've got with me Nathan Tillotson, an IFC member and an experienced shooter. In fact, he has his own firearms company, I believe. We can talk about that. And I'd just like to have Nathan tell us a little bit about why he's here, what he thinks about this issue of arming school staff, why it might be important, and what his comments are, what his reaction is to the last 3 days of training. And by the way, if I'm a little sweaty and a little disconcerted, it's because I just spent the last hour and a half as a target, as an active shooter scenario, with having rubber bullets shoot at me, and I'm bleeding from various places. So
force on force.
Yes, a little sweaty here. So Nathan, tell us a little bit about your background and why you chose to engage in this, and what do you think about it?
Well, Richard said, I have a small firearms company called Are You Ready LLC. It's not firearms; it's firearms training. I'm also president of Southeast Iowa Defensive Shooters, where we hold monthly IDP matches, so International Defensive Pistol. I'm also a certified NRA instructor, so I host carry conceal classes and just generally help people that want to learn more about firearms. The reason I'm here is, if you know anything about Ed Monk, right? Ed Monk was part of the training that we took here these last 3 days. Math and time, right? If you want to. I have to say, if you want to lower the amount of casualties in an area that is currently gun-free zones, the only thing we can do is maybe meet that force with equal force. Hopefully within, according to Ed's research, within the first 30 seconds of the first shot. Currently I'm not able to provide that type of force where I work, and I would really like to. So I'm really thankful IFC and Richard and John and Ed and Adam here, the instructors, to host this training. It's the first of its kind, so I'm excited to be a part of it. I'm all for protecting kids and innocents. That's the whole reason I do what I do on my own, and I'm just hoping that policies will change in order to allow individuals to protect those who can't protect themselves.
I think things are changing in Iowa and across the nation as more parents and school administrators and legislators and others with the power to change things are coming to realize to a greater degree that it is absolutely necessary to meet evil with aggressive force quickly in order to limit the body count. And that's the whole thesis that Ed Monk has. You basically have three choices. You can wait for somebody to call 911 and then wait for the response and that could be quite lengthy depending on where you are. It's always going to be significantly, some significant time. You could have, say in the case of a school, you could have an SRO, school resource officer, on the campus someplace, but is he going to be close to where the action happens? Is he going to hear it? Is he going to be able to respond immediately? Or you could have trained, willing, and armed staff who are present throughout, geographically spread out throughout your facility, whether it be a school or a manufacturing plant or whatever, who are trained and willing to react. In the case of schools, the staff has a caretaker responsibility to their charges to the students, and they also desire to take care of their students. Is the best answer to lock the door and wait for an armed response, or is it to take some action? We think the answer is clear. Now, Nathan, you stated that you can't carry where you are without naming your institution. You work for a public educational institution, right?
Yes.
All right. So here in Iowa, and so hopefully that will change. We did have 2 school districts in Iowa that last year broke the log jam on the idea that we just couldn't have armed people in our schools, because it's not illegal. It's just up to the permission of, if you have permission of the school can grant permission for an armed person, anybody to be armed in the school. So Spirit Lake Schools and the school board and Cherokee School Board decided they're going to carefully select individuals on the staff, train those individuals to a high degree, and arm them. But those programs have been put on hold due to the fact that the insurance company that holds essentially a monopoly on school insurance in Iowa has refused to renew their policy. And so we're going to have to go back to the legislature. There was a bill this year, this last session, that dealt with this as one small feature of the bill. But it was probably an unsatisfactory provision. We need to go back and work on it, and we have commitments from legislators to do that, and we will find what we think is the best solution, and hopefully by the next school year there won't be this roadblock of a problem with insurance. But we do have indication from, once those 2 school districts announced they were going to do this, many others, public school districts, indicated that they wanted to follow along. So we've hit a speed bump in the road to arming school staff here in Iowa, but it's not a complete obstacle, and I think we'll get there. This was an experiment. How would you evaluate the level of training that you received, and did you think it was appropriate for both? We did have some people who it was a requirement that you have a permit to carry, that you've had a basic training lesson, firearm safety training and so on, and have a permit to carry in order to attend this course. But we did have some students who had very little shooting experience beyond that very introductory level. And then we had others like yourself that are, very good shooters.
Oh, thank you. One thing, I carry, I try to, I carry a firearm to protect myself and loved ones and things like that when I'm not at work. I live out of town where I work, so I have, there's a resident nearby maybe that I can actually stow my defensive tools so that I can have them, so when I get off of work I can go to the grocery store and do my errands and things like that, and have that available instead of traveling all the way back home or wherever that might be. So I just want to put that in. But the level of training, I kind of had a little window, as I was kind of part of the students, and I got to hear candidly some comments and things of the participants that were partaking, and some of them with little firearm skills and knowledge were really surprised, impressed, and relieved about what they could do at the end of today's training. All 3 throughout the 3 days of training. Level of training, it's 3 days, and using a firearm in an active shooter scenario and in defense of yourself and others isn't a simple thing. There's all kinds of components to to shooting, let alone having the mindset and thinking through and doing all those things in 3 days. 3 days is not a great amount of time, but I think the instructors did a good job of taking pieces of the base knowledge and putting them together and exposing everyone interested in at least in some part to a beginning level to many of those aspects that you have to consider. I think it's including mindset, even not gonna list them, but I think the training was really well. Was really good. Plenty of shooting and plenty of instruction about holding the firearm and those sorts of things. But in addition to that, we're there because we want to help people. So we also had medical training, how to apply tourniquets. We talk about what to do after the fact too.
Wound care, assessing various sorts of wounds and immediate trauma treatment.
Right. So I think it was really well done. This is the first training of this kind, and I think it was amazing. I want to say thanks to IFC for sponsoring the whole thing.
Thank you. I didn't hear anything. You can tell me if you disagree. I didn't hear any single participant who didn't feel that it was worth their 3 days or 3 days and one evening of training. Plus, we had an evening presentation from Ed Monk in addition to the program during the day. Did you think everybody appreciated it?
I think everybody appreciated it. Some individuals I know had training previously, and so they were comparing this to what training they've had maybe in the recent past. We have all kinds of different, there are all kinds of different personalities. So some of them may like the information a little bit in a different order, or those sorts of things. But in my experience, and I've went to several training, firearms training companies and things like that. And in my opinion, you just can't give them all of the information. You're just drinking from a fire hose. So try to pare that down and get the most important stuff out there and get them thinking about what they need to be thinking about. And I heard, one of the popular things was, I didn't know what I didn't know, right? So now they know that, and I think everybody's leaving knowing how they can improve some of the shortcomings. Maybe this training helped them to identify. So I think that's a win.
Another thing is, as far as the training goes, is Ed Monk, who's studied mass shootings across the country for many years. It doesn't take SEAL Team 6 to go against these active shooters in most cases. This is not a terrorist squad coming into these schools. We're talking particularly about schools here because we're dealing with school staff. It's a disgruntled student or former student in the case of high school and middle school in almost all cases, and an outsider, maybe a former student in the elementary schools. But they have fantasized about these, and planned to a degree, these mass murder events for a long time. But as soon as somebody opposes them, whether they're armed or not, whether the I call them a disruptor, is armed or not, it's almost as if it short circuits their brain, and that's the point of trying to confront them in the first 30 seconds, if possible, is because they stop shooting innocent people at that point. They might return fire on you, the armed disruptor, or law enforcement or whomever, but they stop shooting the innocent people at that point, and so the body count stops. And that's what's important. And that just requires a bit of aggressive resistance, even sometimes by unarmed people. There have been cases of successful interventions by unarmed people. So, and of the armed interventions, about half of them, well, more than half are by non-law enforcement. And then there are some by law enforcement who are in uniform, and more by law enforcement who were they just weren't in uniform. They were off duty or undercover or something. So it doesn't take a tremendous amount of training, but more training the better. And the idea of this training wasn't so much to make everybody into a ninja, it was to acquaint them with the concepts and the mindset. And as one of the instructors said, the body seldom wants to go where the mind hasn't already gone, I think. So, all right. Any other comments, Nathan?
I don't think so.
All right.
I just hope it continues and we, overcome the hurdles that are currently in place.
Well, thank you for participating. We now go to the legislature and see if we can't do something to encourage schools to consider this. The main thing is to stop. These events are very rare, but they're going to continue to happen. And the way to stop them, to lower the body count, is to have an immediate disruption by armed force usually. So anyway, all right, well that's it. Nathan Tillotson, Richard Rogers here at Crossroads Shooting Sports. We want to thank Crossroads for letting us use their ranges and their back rooms and their training facilities, their classrooms for the last 3 days. It kind of put a ding in their business probably, but they're great partners of ours and friends of the Second Amendment. So again, for IFC, thank you. Good day.